How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I'm going to go and give this thing a test out. It's one of the mods. It's called the M181 Hellion, I believe it's pronounced, ISV. I'll just call it the Hellion. Yeah, I gave it a little test the other day, and it's I'm not usually as keen on like fictional trucks and like that sort of stuff. I'd rather like real life game stuff. However, I went for a little blast in it, and I do actually think it's pretty cool. It's certainly got like a few uses in this game. And yeah, it's not really overpowered or anything like that, so it's not beyond the realm of like normal stuff. It's just think of it like a customized kind of off-road vehicle that, yeah, it's kind of like an oversized quad in some ways. One thing I do like about it, I'm just going through now, is like the various roof racks and stuff you can add on. You can add like one almost in the boot of it, and then another roof rack over the top of that. You've got a third option of roof rack, but I think the second choice is better. And then you've got, again, another third roof rack you can add over the top of it. So one area I think it's got quite a lot of use in-game would be just like a little pack donkey that you load a load of stuff up onto. Especially on maps like, I reckon on a Mandra, stuff like that, it'd be pretty handy. Rift, I suppose, a lot of off-road stuff. You can see now I've just stuck it in the high-low, and it's a little bit, I wouldn't say slippy on rocks relative to other stuff. Everything seems to be pretty slippy on rocks in this game. But it's, yeah, apart from that, it's pretty nice at climbing stuff, going up hills, all that sort of stuff. It's got pretty nice, decent tyres. It sits very wide. The weight of the truck itself is sat very low, so it's pretty good for not rolling, which, again, is kind of like another area where there's certain parts of maps and stuff that you don't necessarily need to go to a lot, but you might just want to, you know, go roaming around and explore. And yeah, for some vehicles they're a bit tricky, like you're not really going to be taking a Transstar up the side of some wiggly dodgy mountain and stuff. But yeah, something like this is kind of, it's got enough ground clearance and everything, quite a short wheelbase, so as far as stepping over rocks and stuff like that, like I said, if you're on pure rocks, there's it'd be nice if there was more grip, but like I said, it's not really that this hasn't got a lot of grip, it's just the whole game in general doesn't really, yeah, doesn't really like climbing up rocks too well. Just going for a little lap on Black River as well. It was motoring along pretty nicely through those like mud, like dirt roads. I'd say, if anything, a little bit mad there, but there is a lower, slower gearbox, like a crawler version, if yeah, I mean, it wasn't ridiculous there. Overall, it doesn't feel overpowered or anything, but I admit I did get a bit of a move on going down that lane just then. But yeah, if you go to the crawler gearbox, it's a little bit calmer. I was kind of, again, messing around, but one thing I did like, that I was able to bash into the rocks, even across those chunks of ice as well. And it didn't, you do damage the suspension a bit, because everything seems to take that. It's got nice suspension health though, so it doesn't really accumulate too quick. But overall, it doesn't completely delete it when you were bumping over rocks. You could see just back then as well, I stuck it in high range. It goes a bit mad with high range on the ice. It just violently flicks left and right. I don't know what the crack is, but it's like one tyre at a time loses complete grip while the other one's fine, and then they just alternate, and yeah, you snake around like a nutcase. Cutting across ice as well, it was kind of cool because there's enough weight in it that it punches through the ice, which is just quite fun for messing around. But it also it was a bit close, but it had just about enough ground clearance and the tyre grip and all the rest of it to claw its way back out of there. So it kind of sits in the realm where, yeah, you could entertain the possibility of going to mess around in some of the breakable ice sections. Again, some trucks just, as soon as you go near ice, you either punch through and you're stuck or whatever, and it's not even worth entertaining the idea. So yeah, as I said, my kind of favourite mods in this game is definitely like at least real life trucks, and mostly like a lot of the JBE mods are really good. They're like the trucks that are already in the game, they've just been tweaked in most cases. Like I said, in some cases, as with yesterday with the JBE John, it's the engine power and everything's the same, it's just been given more options, and it overall equals a better truck at the end of it. But yeah, the more, like I said, unrealistic stuff, this, I don't know, I can't remember if this is like an old thing out of Halo or something, I'm not too sure, but it looks like some kind of fictional game or film off-road thing. But again, I mean, it's a four-wheel drive. It has got four-wheel steering, which is pretty nice. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think it's unrealistic. It behaves in a way a little bit like the crawler, I think, to a degree. So yeah, as I said, a bit of an oversized quad, if you imagine, and the amount of different roof racks you can add on to it, you can get 400 or 500 points, probably a bit more than that actually. I think it was 450 with the 2 rear roof racks, and then I think that top third roof rack actually only adds spare tyres and spare fuel, so 450 repair points, quite a lot of spare fuel, enough spare tyres, and like I said, yeah, just a little bit of a pack horse thing that you can load up and just go and send off into the mountains. And on stuff like Amandra, if you had a breakdown, you crashed or did something, yeah, sending one of these out, because Amandra's one of them where I still sent the life out a lot because it's a goddamn horse of a vehicle, but I quite often stuck it in the back of a dolphin. That's what she said. Definitely sounds like some kind of euphemism. And yeah, I just carry the loaf around with the dolphin because Amandra is just a bit too trollish with the snow and everything. There is areas that the loaf does motor along on Amandra, but there is a lot of areas where it just, yeah, crawls along it. Just not fast enough really. A lot of stuff's just over punished really on Amandra. I'm only back on Lake Coved. I called it Cobb. Lake Coved because I wanted to go for a little trek across them cliffs, but yeah, for the most part I don't really go back to the Kola Peninsula. I think I've done most, if not all, of the missions on there. Yeah, I came to I wanted to go and have a little go at jump in the wall. The interior view, by the way, not very good really because it's got quite a short windscreen. For me personally, I don't really care because 99% of the time I'm in third person view anyway. But yeah, it just, with like how low the top of the windscreen and everything's sat, it's kind of just sat in your way and you can't really see a hell of a lot. Went through the trees just fine though. Like, this is not a proper review or anything, but I was just kind of, what I tended to find was, yeah, I mean, going up in the mountains and stuff, because it's really good for not rolling as well. Yeah, it's quite good just for sending off into the awkward areas, particularly tipping wise, where, as you can see, even sort of doing a U-turn halfway up the mountain, it didn't tip then. Right now, I was trying to tip it just to see for my own curiosity, and yeah, it's hanging on pretty bloody well. So I assume it's like practically all the weights level with the tyres pretty much. Which is good, because again, it's like one nice thing with the mods is you can almost, with some of them, remove one element of the game to then try other things. So for example, obviously it's like tipping over is a part of life and driving around mountains and that in this game, but for the most part, if you just want to skip the tipping over part and you actually just want to go off-roading for longer than a minute without tipping over, this is the sort of mod that's pretty nice to take. I got seriously unlucky there. I rolled eventually and I just bounced perfectly, landed straight down. Normally it tips back to its wheels or it'll try and roll to its roof or whatever, but I just landed it so perfectly it just sat on its side, and yeah, I couldn't get out there. So for this one, there was a little bit earlier, it can have the trailers, it can have all like the usual trailers you can tow. It's got the scout versions and the truck versions, which is pretty nice. And normally I hate this trailer because the tyres are too small, it's got like mud flaps on it, and they just, in general, it acts like an anchor. But because this thing sits quite nice and high, as I've said before, this trailer would be better off as a sled. And the fact that this thing sits nice and high and it lifts the first axle off the floor, it behaves a bit more like a sled in this situation. And all I was curious, as you can see, I've already pretty lucky that I've made it this far, but one thing I don't like with the, say, the 2-slot trailers, because they've got that dolly axle and everything as well, between the amount of rotation they get on the hitch, and then the rotation of the dolly axle, and then just the weight of them flopping over, there's enough there that the trailer on its own can flop over enough that it'll lose the cargo. So I kind of theorised with this that, as you can see, the trailer can only tip so far and then it kind of locks against the hitch, and unless it carries me with it, the trailer can't tip anymore. So I was kind of hoping, will that be enough that it won't just keep letting your cargo detach? And yeah, as you can see now, this was just, again, pure messing around really. It ended up not being a particularly fast time for this course. I was like nearer 3 minutes or something, but if I had that red 2-slot trailer, particularly just the 2-axle one, not the 4-axle one, yeah, my cargo would have been gone long ago. Even now I was like, bloody hell, I'm surprised it's hanging on as well as it is. As a goddamn professional, I've got to rescue him soon. It's like saving country bread. A very worthwhile mission. Yeah, again, I was seriously pushing my luck, but it just shows you that I was kind of, there was a bit of method to my madness with what I was saying with the dolly axle and everything, that it just, the ramped flatbed as well, in fact, with the 4-slot trailer, that's another prime example of that's horrifically bad for just, it's like when you brake, it just slides, it twists the dolly axle under the trailer and flicks itself over, whereas yeah, with this, there is no dolly axle. And there again, how the hell it stayed on this whole time, I don't know, but it must be a few degrees off like the limit where it then just automatically unpacks your cargo. I thought, no Milo, now when I hit that tree, I thought I'd just waiting the whole time to hear that clunk noise where it's disconnected, but by some kind of miracle, it actually stayed on there. And again, it wasn't the fastest mission. I wouldn't be doing this mission a lot in this anyway, because I need to bring a trailer for this, and if you want to repeat the mission, you best off just bring in, like, yeah, a truck that's got a sideboard bed or whatever that can just carry the cargo. And yeah, last little blast going down the White Valley runway. Again, the pace is pretty nice on it. There is that crawler gearbox. The crawler gearbox, I believe I was using up in the mountains or something, so if you yeah, if you want a bit of a slower pace to it, it's definitely there. And as you can see, again, flying off the mountain, or the cliff or whatever, it wants to stay very flat. It starts to sort of tilt backwards, then it rocks back forwards, and yeah, it's incredibly likely to land on its wheels. Again, a bit like a loaf in that regard. Drowning wise, you can get the water up to about the centre console next to your leg in the cockpit, and then water starts kicking in. So how's a loaf going to upstage something that always lands on its wheels? Well, you can always rely on the goddamn horse of a vehicle to do something impressive. So we both landed, but a loaf, I mean, he's just showing off. He's balancing. Got ourselves the circus horse. Yeah, when I landed, I headbutted the Hellion pretty good. Scared the shit out of them rocks. It's always a bonus. And yeah, the loaf was just balancing perfectly, and you see, and I realise why. Because it damaged its engine. Staying tipped over for easy access to the engine and suspension. Get it fixed. Another toot to the horn, and we're good to go. I mean, it would have fired up the whole time, but, you know, likes to make a dramatic entrance. That's what she said. Again, always get yourself a loaf. But yeah, that's about it for this thing. Like I say, overall, I do prefer, like, actual real trucks that are just been tweaked and modded to make them more fun and usable in the game. But overall, like, yeah, this thing's not, you know, some space technology mad thing. It's within the realm of reason. There's things out there that'll be roughly similar to this. It's, you know, four-wheel drive, reasonably powered, and just kind of like a bigger version of a quad, really, just with bodywork and everything around it. Another thing it'd be quite nice to replace is stuff like the Taz and Warthog, because they've got the repair things that sit on the back that bring about 500 points. But they are a bit terrible, really, as far as going through mud and snow and everything. This definitely feels more realistic in that sense. So, yeah, overall, I think there's room for it in the game kind of thing. It's not going to be my main playthrough or anything like that, but just to whip out every now and then. And, yeah, go for a little mad 5 minutes, or just use as, like, quite an enjoyable sort of off-road rescue truck or something, just to deliver spare parts is, yeah, pretty cool. Again, a little slippy on the rocks, but it's kind of around the same as the other stuff. The Yar struggled a little bit getting up here and a few other things. So yeah, that's about it for today though. I will just say as well, because I keep forgetting, but yeah, thanks to my Patreon members. I forgot I've even had a Patreon for about the last month or so. Someone asked me the other day, and I was like, I nearly said, oh, I'll get one. I was going to get it sorted, and I was like, hang on, I have got one. So yeah, thanks to my Patreon members. Like I say, that's about it for today. I hope that helps. I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Again, it's pretty keen on returning to its wheels, which is always nice. And yeah, I'll be back soon. Oh yeah, and get yourself a loaf, of course, because it's a goddamn horse of a vehicle.